Based on how Show turned out, I wanted to investigate some more of my kids' drawings, to translate some more of my kids' drawings, because there's something magical about the way a kid's brain works, the ideas that they come up with. It's the kind of thing that I could never come up with myself. There's just something so wild about their ideas. Today's kaiju is one of Clover's. She's age 7, and there's definitely going to be more in the future that come from this process of getting the kids to draw something and then trying to create whatever they draw. So this is Clover's idea. It's just your everyday, stereotypical kaiju idea, really. Giant sphere with a rectangular cuboid on its head, wearing a pyramid as a hat with a face, which can detach because they have a symbiotic relationship. It can detach, fly, it has tentacles like a jellyfish, and it can sting other kaiju and kill them. Oh, and they're Welsh as well. So yeah, pretty bog standard really, been done a million times, hasn't it? I think she said Wales because she's been learning about the capital cities of the UK, and obviously Cardiff, Wales, so I think, Wales is in the forefront of her mind at the moment. But also we do have these this atlas book, which is pretty cool, which they look at quite a bit, the kids look at to determine where kaiju might come from, and it's also got a load of flags in the back which are quite nice to look at. We do little flag quizzes. I'm quite good at knowing which flag belongs to which country, actually, if I do say so myself. And while we're talking books, this one's also pretty good. This has been useful for them in sort of coming up with kaiju ideas as well as a jumping off point. It's basically tons of illustrations of weird and wonderful real-life animals. Getting from kids drawing to final kaiju design obviously involves a little bit of a process and some post-rationalising, as always. What's this kaiju's deal? Initially, Clover said it was designed to be an alien kaiju. But as we investigated more its connection to Wales and why it was from Wales, it became more apparent that it was probably a mutant kaiju, and we'll get onto that as we progress. What do we think of when we think of Wales? Well, I think of rugby.
He's Curry again in that channel and loving it. Oh, look at the big man go! He's got to get there.
I think of long train station names.
Just up the road from Llanfair Pwllgwyngyll go get a Dwbl, Llan Tysilio go.
I think of Joe Allen. But none of those are really going to inform a kaiju design. What could do, however, is mining. That's another thing that springs to mind when people think of Wales, is there's a rich history of coal mining in Wales. Famously, coal mining is a great source of national pride in Wales, and it's, like I said, if you're from the UK, this is probably one of the first things you think of if you think of Wales. But it's not just coal. Wales also has a rich mineral heritage in terms of other geological stuff. There are all kinds of rocks and minerals mined in Wales, including quartz. In fact, researching this, I discovered that almost unbelievably, every square metre of Welsh landscape contains some quartz. In the 19th century, quartz rock crystals In the 19th century, quartz rock crystals found in Snowdonia were sold to tourists as Welsh diamonds, and quartz veins throughout North Wales often will have gold in them as well. Welsh gold, which is quite rare and sought after since the Roman times. So, given that this kaiju already looks like he's kind of made of crystal in some way already, it kind of seemed too good to be true. Perhaps he's the result of some kind of mutation, a mutant kaiju. A quartz-like crystalline colossus formed under the pressure of the mountains of Wales and later mutated by some unknown chemistry or radiation into a gigantic colossus, or colossi, because there's two of them, remember. In Welsh, the word for crystal is grisial, and the word for double is, typically Welsh, vowelless. Dwbl. I don't know how you say it, it's got no vowels. So we called this particular kaiju Dwbl Grisial, double crystal, or just Grisial for short. It might be that the small pyramid being is called Dwbl and the big one is called Grisial, I don't know. So as I was working on this, it became apparent that it was starting to become more of a graphic illustration rather than a drawing like some of my other drawings. And I liked that, so I leaned into it. The issue was when I was researching quartz crystals and looking at imagery of quartz crystals. I can't stop saying that. Quartz crystals. It's a bit of a tongue twister. When I was looking at imagery of quartz crystals, I wasn't quite sure how my illustration style would capture the look and feel appropriately of those crystals. I wasn't sure how to illustrate it using those, hatched lines. But still, I kind of figured, this design, this whole kaiju idea is pretty out there, so why not go a little bit more out there with the illustration and try something a little bit different in the illustration style as well. In some ways, there were kind of patterns within these crystals. It occurred to me that some of these patterns looked like the kind of effect that you get when you have a not quite fully inked up roller when I was doing like gel printing and things. Why not get that out and try making some textures? So I got out the paint roller again and just messed about making some textures and scanned them in. Unlike other kaiju where I've gone straight into Procreate, this time I went straight into Affinity, working in vector mode to create the shapes that I could then use to mask sections of those scanned in textures. Using vector software again leans into that graphic illustration style, and it gives more accurate clinical lines and edges. I still always planned to use Procreate later on, but just to do things like touch up the eyes and the mouth and do the kind of what would end up being the more creepy bits, the bits that appear to be biological, living tissue, in contrast to the inorganic crystalline structures of the main form. Honestly, this design came together pretty quickly because I was happy with almost the first iteration of the drawing that I did of Grisial. So I didn't do that many iterations. Just felt good about it. It's not like any of the other kaiju I've designed so far, and I hesitate to say this, but it's almost got a kind of playfulness to it, a playful character, which would not usually interest me at all. Usually I'm all about the dark, moody, creepy stuff, but I feel like I can still add a sinister edge to something that's quite playful and cute, and that could even make it even more creepy. So those areas of living tissue like the mouth and the eyes and the teeth juxtaposed with the inorganic could actually pull it back from essentially cute. The idea is that his head sort of pivots on this gravity-defying point of the body, and the head and body can rotate independently of one another. The body can spin as an attack, creating this kind of whirling, slicing action. And as mentioned previously, Dwbl, the pyramid hat, can detach and become his own autonomous entity. So Dwbl holds the intelligence and Grisial is essentially the tank. Together though, they have this mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship. It's a bit like a much less problematic Master Blaster from Mad Max, if you've ever seen that, but that is problematic, so if you haven't seen it, don't check it out because it's extremely dated. As soon as Dwbl leaves Grisial though, Grisial becomes a kind of rampaging titan, essentially with no discernible goal or objective. I like the idea of using this as a gameplay mechanic as well, like this kaiju is split over two cards essentially. Perhaps they even match up when you stick the two cards together, and you've got Grisial with in one card and Dwbl on the other card, and perhaps Grisial has an ability that can call Dwbl, and you can search the deck to find him, and vice versa, or something, I don't know, and then that gives you some kind of advantage. I don't know, there's something to play with there, potentially. So yeah, this is Dwbl Grisial, and it's looking a little removed from my usual style, despite trying to draw in this creepy mouth and eyes, but I don't think it's too different. I think it's like I say to my kids sometimes when they're eating their tea, you know, it might not be your favourite, but it's still food and you can still eat it, so eat it. And this is the same thing, really. They're not my favourite kaiju so far, but I can still eat them. I'm glad I investigated, you know, I'm glad I at least investigated a slight detour, and guess what? There might be other people who this is their favourite kaiju, you never know. Perhaps, you know, when the game eventually comes out, that might be someone's favourite card. At the very least, Dwbl Grisial is an interesting prospect for a kaiju. So let me know what you think. Get over to Patreon, get over to just stay on YouTube and like and comment, and I'll see you next time.